I think that my journey back to myself, or perhaps the first time I really got to meet myself, was in Utah. And I would say that nature and my relationship with the wilderness and the natural world absolutely shaped that experience. I felt like I had such a deep relationship with this land. And I think it also came from a place of my willingness to see the beauty and the sacredness that was around me. I came to Utah in 2012. I had a newborn, and my partner and I were both starting our jobs as professors at the University of Utah. And I consciously sought a place of connection. And that place of connection has always, always, always been water for me. In my culture, we have a tradition that lives to this day, but it's thousands and thousands of years old. Wherever we come upon a body of water, a river, a stream, a pond, a lake, an ocean, a sea, we say zdravo vodo, which means both hello water, and it also means be healthy water, be in good health. So it's both a spell and a blessing and a greeting at the same time. And it's a very powerful thing. So I went to say hello to water, and I went to the Great Salt Lake. And in so many ways, I found my home there. This ancient being that breathes and moves in the breeze and gives life and exudes life. And it was so beautiful to me. Some people say it's smelly. Some people say it's too salty. But to me, it was absolute magic. And from that connection to the Great Salt Lake, I sought more connection. I connected to the mountains. I connected to this beautiful place, the City Creek Canyon. I connected to the wild rivulets of the creek. I felt like all the water here was speaking to me, and I was finally ready to listen. I think that this recognition of connection to the land led to a deeper sense of desire and willingness to no longer be disassociated and to really connect to myself, to who I am, not who I pretended to be so that I would fit in, but really, truly, deeply who I am at my core. And this is something that I struggled with for most of my life. As most people do, I wanted to belong somewhere. I wanted to fit in. And a lot of fitting in, what that really meant for me was pretending to be someone that I wasn't so that I would be acceptable. But when you feel connected, when you feel held by the ground and the water and the wind and the sky, when you feel like you're being held by all of these wise ancient entities, there's great power that comes from that. And I think that there's no greater power than self-acceptance and self-love. And here in Utah, I also came to know myself really deeply and to acknowledge all of these parts of myself that felt disjointed, but were now being invited into the whole. I finally acknowledged that gender really doesn't mean much to me and that I feel like gender, much like race, is a social construct. And something that we need to cling to because binaries feel safer to us as humans, because they feel like something we can control. But I've always been a shapeshifter. And if I had it my own way, I would shift from gender to gender, from animal to bird to fish to human. And I'm no longer afraid to admit to myself or to others that this is how I see the world. So my identity really isn't grounded in any particular gender. I feel very fluid that way, much like water, that takes shapes of different things depending on her mood and the circumstances. And I like to say that I, at this moment in time, because these things can change, identify the most with the notion of being a demigirl, which really means that, for the most part, I got used to identifying with the gender that was assigned to me at birth, which is female. But also, I like to diverge from it from time to time. And sometimes it changes multiple times a day. And sometimes it stays fixed. And at other times, I will fluctuate in some other way that I cannot possibly predict. But there's a lot of freedom in living in these non-linear spaces, in the margins, the spaces that are ill-defined, spaces that are open to definition, rather. And I think that's a brave space. I think that's a safe space for a lot of us who don't align with strict boundaries. So I feel very comfortable with my identity now. Something else that really fuels my writing and my writing life is the fact that I'm a neurodivergent person, which really, when translated into layman's terms, means that I have an unusual brain. And in terms of my diagnoses, I never really thought that I would get one, and definitely not multiple diagnoses. But at some point in my life, I felt that I didn't have to struggle, and that maybe knowing a little more about how the society defines me will help me navigate it in a smoother, easier way. And I had an inkling. I've been told that I'm weird. So I knew that there was something unusual about me. But I felt that I was ready to acknowledge that in a more meaningful way. So last year, I went through the lengthy and complicated process of seeking a diagnosis. And what I ended up with was the diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder, high functioning autism spectrum disorder, ADHD, and high sensitivity. I'm also a synesthete, which means that I have a condition called synesthesia, which is often connected to ADHD and autism spectrum. And what it really means is that my senses get mixed up and they inform one another. And it's a really beautiful way of being. I can see and taste colors. I can see the colors of numbers. I can hear colors. I can taste shapes. So any combination of senses that you can think of, I experience it. And it results in a very rich sensory life, but it also really feeds my writing. And it absolutely ends up in my stories, in my poetry, in everything that I write. And I've been told many times by editors and reviewers and readers that I create these very powerful and very unusual metaphors. And I love to hear that, because that speaks to this strange condition that I have, my neurodivergence and synesthesia. Because these unusual metaphors and descriptions that are really vivid and powerful, they come from the way that my brain is structured. And so it's a gift. It's a superpower. I can taste a recipe even before I read it. And this is something that I enjoy a great deal. It's probably the best part about being weird. In the novel that I'm currently working on, The Taste of Names, even the title really is informed by synesthesia, because my protagonist, whose name is Vida, and she's a young neurodivergent woman growing up in ex-Yugoslavia, right at the cusp of the war, much like I was, she experiences the world in a different way than most of her peers and people who surround her. And through her voice, I really get to tell the story of a young neurodivergent person that I was. And it's very important to me to have those kinds of stories out in the world. From Vida's cookbook, chocolate truffles to help you endure your beloved's leaving. Note to the cook. First, always think about the one who feeds your heart. Once you can see their eyes clearly, commence your work. If your true love is not to be found, you can try to substitute the next best thing for it, but it will never taste the same. Method. Mix bitter chocolate and sweet cream and let them come together hastily, like unlikely lovers. Add their illegitimate child, the vanilla sugar, and allow it to stand for a few minutes, muddled, until it accepts its destiny. Stir until smooth. Taste the mixture. It should taste honest and kind and brown all over. It should feel like smooth jazz wrapped in honey trickling down your throat. If you can still feel the spiky whiteness of sugar crystals piercing your tongue, you need to work it some more. Allow it to cool, then place in the refrigerator to rest for 2 hours. Once cool, roll in your hands quickly like you do before you peel a hot chestnut from a street vendor, then dip in unsweetened cocoa powder. The truffles should melt in your mouth like forgiving snowflakes. If your beloved leaves without saying goodbye, double the batch. It won't mend your heart, but it will make it easier to carry the broken pieces around. As we grow up as a society, there are more and more stories that are told in own voices. And I think there's great power and importance in that. And to have a neurodivergent author tell a story about a neurodivergent character, that is everything. When I was growing up, that's what I wanted. That's what I was longing for. I longing for someone who knew me deeply and who could tell my story so that I could find myself and so that I wouldn't feel alone. And I hope that by telling this story, that I will get to speak to folks who feel isolated, to folks who feel misunderstood, to folks who feel alone, and that I will create a refuge for them in my writing and through my writing. That is something that is of greatest importance to me, both as a human and a writer. A few years ago, when I was at a low point in my life, and I was really struggling with a sense of belonging, I came upon a quote by one of my favorite authors, Dr. Maya Angelou. And Dr. Maya says, "You're only free when you realize you belong no place. You belong every place. No place at all. The price is high. The reward is great." If you ever felt like you didn't belong, like I did so many times, I hope this quote fills you with a sense of power and a sense that you matter, that your words matter, and that belonging is within your reach.